Om, Om, Sahana Vavatu, Sahano Bhunaktu, Sahaviryam Karavavahai, Tejasvinavaditamastu Mavit Vishavahai. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Are there any questions? Are there any clarifications from the previous class? We are on the chapter Value Systems for Positive Living. When you observe the world, what is the lowest value that a person can entertain? You see people committing all sorts of acts. So the lowest value would be a person who exploits others, somebody who exploits their own benefactor. See, that's the example of Macbeth. So Shakespeare gives the example of Macbeth to highlight one of the worst types of villains. So what Macbeth did was to murder his own benefactor, somebody who was good to him, was kind to him. So he called his king, King Duncan, he invited him to his castle and murdered him at night. With his own hands, he murdered him. So the lowest value would be to exploit others. And the highest value is to be selfless, to give your life for the sake of others, give yourself for the sake of others. So, two extremes we have, One extreme is a person who exploits others for his selfish benefit. And the other extreme is where you give everything away for the sake of others. So, when we talk about values, where do these values come from? It has nothing to do with your family, it has nothing to do with what country you're born in. The moment you talk about values, it is rational principles born out of identification. So, value systems are not do's and don'ts, which is what is practiced in religions in the world today. Values, according to religion, is just do's and don'ts. Now, that's not how we are defining values. These are rational principles born out of an identification. In other words, your value is dependent on what you're identifying with. So you start with the highest, it becomes easier to understand. What is the highest value? You gain the highest value when you identify with the self. The moment you identify with the self, it is the same self in everyone. There's a universal identification. There's no distinctions, there's no demarcations automatically. You're ready to serve everyone. There's no attachments. So, highest values come out of identification with the self. And as the identification shifts to other equipments, slowly your values go down. So, lowest value would be identification with materiality and sensuality. You can't identify with the self and exploit others. It's impossible. You understand? So, if you're identifying with the self, how can you exploit? See, identifying with yourself is like identifying with your own body. How can you harm your body? It's your body, you won't harm. So, when you identify with the self in others, you see them as yourself. So, you will only want to help them, you can't exploit them. So, the entire spiritual knowledge is to keep expanding your identification. So, even in the last class, I explained to you all the difference between a mineral person, a vegetable person, a human person, and a God person. So, God person is one whose identification is everywhere and nowhere in particular. See, all other categories, they have a boundary. A mineral person has got a very small circle. It's almost like a dot because he's identifying only with himself. A plant person or a vegetable person has got a larger circle of identification. He's identifying with his own family. And then an animal person identifies with his community, a still larger circle. But the problem with the circle is what? Within the circle, the person is an angel. Outside the circle, he does a lot of harm. So those who are community leaders, they do a lot of help within the community, but they're ready to clash with other communities because identification doesn't expand beyond the community. A human person identifies with all human beings in the world, but can't identify with animals, plants. In the Upanishads, it says to chop down a tree, to cut down a tree, is like killing three Brahmins. Is the equivalent of killing three Brahmins. Three true Brahmins, not Brahmin by birthright, but real top quality Brahmins. Three of them, you kill them. He's saying chopping down one tree is equivalent of that. So that amount of identification. So God person is one who identifies with everyone, everything, plants, animals, humans. So his identification is nowhere in particular. Are you Christian? Yes and no. You understand? So he may be a Christian by birth, but his identification is beyond Christianity. He may be British by birth, but his identification is beyond the country. So highest identification leads to highest values. So everybody else is in circles. Literally, they're going around in circles. You understand? A mineral person, a vegetable person. A God person, how can he be depicted? Because he doesn't have any boundary. He's depicted as a straight line. You know what is the definition of a straight line?
Shortest distance between 2 points.
It's just a line, straight line. Straight line is the arc of a circle, the radius of a circle, who is the arc of a circle whose radius is infinite. See, imagine you have a small circle, okay? Now, if you keep expanding the circle, what happens? It gets straighter and straighter and straighter. You understand? So, if the circle is infinite, it's got an infinite radius, it becomes a straight line. Straight line is the radius of a arc of a circle whose radius is infinite. So his identification is infinite. He becomes a straight person. So values, we started with the fundamental values, and then we will look into ultimate values. So fundamental values, the first one was action. And we looked at it in terms of the quality, not the quantity. The quality of action matters more than the quantity. So quality of action should be unselfish or selfless. And then the direction. Second value is the direction of your action. Action plus attitude is direction. So the direction could be towards the world or beyond the world. If it is towards the world, it is relative ideals. Ideals within the world, to accomplish something within the world. Absolute ideal is the ideal of self-realization, which is selfless. So in the case of the absolute ideal, you're using the subtle intellect. In relative ideals is the gross intellect. The third value, once you launch into action and you're giving it the right direction, so now the action is going on, the direction is well set. The third value is probably one of the most important values, is to maintain objectivity. Because if you were to get involved even when helping others, you will be in trouble. There's a French writer who says indiscriminate charity does more harm to the world than not giving. Indiscriminate charity does more harm than not giving. See, in other words, even higher values have to be governed by the intellect. So you've got to maintain an objectivity in whatever you do. So, three questions. What is objectivity? How to practice objectivity? And how to measure your objectivity? Objectivity. What does it mean? Objectivity means to step back and observe. The capacity to take a step back and observe. Opposite of objectivity is impulsiveness. You rush into things. So, sign of objectivity is composure. Composure in chaotic circumstances. See, even if the circumstance is chaotic, you maintain your composure. Like that pilot, Sully, who landed the aircraft, you know, it's such an emergency situation, so many people's lives at stake. Very coolly, he landed the aircraft, Boston River, you know. So you need objectivity to accomplish that. It's not easy. So objectivity means to take a step back, and what helps you to take a step back is your intellect. The mind always gets involved, attached. The mind is impulsive and emotional. So the mind gets entangled in the situation. Objectivity is to disentangle yourself from the situation. It's like a string. You know, if there's a string which gets all knotted up, and if you got to unravel that, you need that patience, you know. If everything gets knotted up, oh, what is this? I can't take this out. And you try harder and harder. What happens? It gets further knotted. So if you panic, if you get impulsive, you get further into trouble. So you need to be cool to unravel it. So maintaining that composure. So objectivity is the use of reason rather than the play of desires. The play of desires makes you get involved and attached, but the use of reason keeps you objective. See, even if you have a flaw in you, doesn't matter. Is how you manage that flaw. So you don't have to blame yourself for a flaw that you have. You have a flaw, yes. You accept it. Be objective about that. Even you meet with failure. Sometimes you may not get success all the time. You get failure. So what? One failure is not going to define me. That's what Churchill defines success. Success is going from failure to failure without loss of enthusiasm. More failures you go through, chance of more success. Because you're at least doing something about your life rather than sitting down. Failure, success is going from failure to failure without loss of enthusiasm. So how could you can achieve that only if you're objective. All right, it's all right. It's more difficult to be objective in success than failure. See, it's interesting when you meet with failure, you automatically think, my God, where did I go wrong? What happened? Why didn't it work? You understand? So when there is failure, there's automatic introversion. Automatically you think. When there is success, you throw caution to the winds. So more difficult to be objective in success than in failure. So objectivity is like a judge. A judge hears both sides of the argument. When the defense speaks, he nods his head. You understand? The other party speaks, he nods the head, but he's on neither side. He is neutral. So objectivity is that capacity, that technique, and it comes through the development of the intellect. Stronger the intellect, greater your objectivity. Now, what you'll find is that when you start practicing objectivity, say everyone has a certain level of objectivity, nobody's zero. But what you'll find is it is easier to be objective when it comes to others. So you can start practicing objectivity from outside, from external factors, and then bring it to internal. The closer it gets to you, the more difficult you'll find to practice objectivity. So, someone totally unconnected to you, you can be easily objective. But when they are connected to you, you love them, you're attached to them, it's difficult to be objective. See, for example, a surgeon can be a brilliant surgeon, operate on other patients. If he has to operate on his own wife or his own son, it's completely different. A solicitor may be brilliant solicitor, but if he has to deal with his own family matters, he may find it more difficult. So the intellect is able to manage the emotions of the mind. Mind goes through the fluctuations of the opposites in the world. So what is the world? World is defined as pairs of opposites. There is cleanliness and dirt. There's opposites. Poverty and wealth. Health and ill health. Pleasure, pain. Joy, sorrow. Praise, censure. The different opposites are operating in the world in different levels of your personality. So objectivity is like that hovercraft. Nowadays, you don't find that hovercrafts, isn't it? So hovercraft, what does a hovercraft do? It takes you, it can take you on land and on water. So it creates a bed of air, so to speak. It lifts the craft above the water and it moves. So that is objectivity. So objectivity means you are in the world and yet you're above it. You're moving in water, yet you're above the water, like a hovercraft. A fireman goes into the fire to fight fire. How is it he is able to do it? He's wearing the suit. Recently, the fire service they redesigned the suit. So it looks very smart now. The fireman suit, fire person suit. So a person wears a suit, it protects you from the external fire, external heat. So that's all objectivity is. The intellect protects you. Otherwise, you're vulnerable to the emotions of the mind. Objectivity and detachment are two sides to the same coin. So, what is to understand objectivity? You have to understand detachment. See, an excellent example of that is the poem Even This Shall Pass Away. The king of Persia wore that ring. On that ring was inscribed the words, Even this shall pass away. And that helped him maintain the detachment. He was detached to wealth, he was detached to pleasure, he was detached to fame. As a result, he was objective. So when you're objective on stage, you're detached from the role. See, the person who acts on stage is detached from that role that he's acting. He's objective to all the happenings on stage. So treat your roles as an actor does. You understand? See, one day is a well received performance, you know. See, it happens to all the actors. Some of the movies is a big hit, some of the movies big flop. Or you got to maintain a composure, otherwise you'll go mad. So what do? You maintain the detachment. So I have nothing to do with the role. I'm just executing a role. So again, it comes back to that identification. What are you identifying with? So if your identification is deeper and deeper, you become more and more objective. So you could be a mother, you could be a father. It's just a role. You could be a CEO or an employee. It's just a role. Could be a teacher or a student. It's just a role. But if you are not identifying with anything else, you can't see it as a role. You get involved, you get attached to that. So the actor understands he is Mr. So and so, is Miss so and so enacting a role, but he has nothing to do with the role. See, one of the actors uh, passed away, I think. Isn't it? That guy who acted as the Joker in that film. He got affected after enacting that role. He got because it's a very difficult role, you know. So that role, he got involved in that role. So he could go mad. It's just a role, just performing a role. I have nothing to do with the role. So detachment is the other side of objectivity. So how to practice objectivity? So practice of objectivity is twofold. First is to strengthen the intellect. So keep strengthening your intellect. Number one. Number two, keep increasing your ideals. Higher ideal. When we say higher ideal, what do we mean by higher ideal? What does the word higher mean?
Nobler.
Nobler. Again, what does nobler mean?
It's unselfish, not for yourself, for others.
So higher ideal means more unselfish. Higher and higher ideals means more and more unselfish. Lower ideal is more self-centered. So to keep improving the ideals is like fine-tuning. You're improving it, escalating that ideal to higher and higher levels. See, it's to do with the dilution of the ego. So when the ideal is focused only on yourself, the ego is maximum. But when the ideal is directed to the family, the ego reduces. To the community, the ego reduces even more. So, how to reduce your ego is by expanding your identification towards higher ideals. So, this knowledge that we are studying, this has been coming from generation to generation. Great sages, great saints have given this knowledge thousands of years back. So, if you're able to identify with that, my God, if I can identify with those people, it becomes a very different way of thinking. So, same subject, same knowledge, you can look at it, oh, I'm learning a few things and I'm practicing it in my life. Or you could think in terms of, my God, this is a knowledge given by those great sages. So, when you expand that identification, you become more objective. It's not just one person applying this, you're in the company of so many others. So you feel more secure when you're more objective. See, what creates insecurity in life is selfishness. The more selfish a person is, the more insecure the person feels. An unselfish person is always secure. See, that's what is fascinating. Security doesn't come from wealth. Security doesn't come from family. Security doesn't come from power or position, doesn't come from health. Only one factor which gives you security is unselfishness, the spirit of giving. So if you are a giver, if you're unselfish, you don't need anything else. That's the secret of these great masters. They had nothing. What did Christ have? He had nothing. So they had nothing because they were unselfish. So when you expand the ideals, when you become more and more unselfish, you become more and more secure. Sometimes father become jealous of their sons. Huh? The son later in life achieves greater things than the father. The father could become jealous of the son. So it's to do with selfishness. Your focus is only on yourself. The moment you start giving, the moment you start sharing, so giving means to share. The moment you start sharing, you feel more secure. So, number one, strengthen the intellect. Number two, increase your ideals. Gradually, it doesn't have to be suddenly, just gradually keep identifying with something higher, something greater than you all the time. Then temporary objectivity. See, these two methods give you permanent objectivity. But temporarily, if you want to practice objectivity, what should you do is look at that experience as a horizontal view and a vertical view. So you're going through some experience. It's a very difficult experience. And you're getting affected by that experience. So look at it horizontally and vertically. Horizontally means in your own life. See, suppose the family, they have a pet, the pet dies, whole family, they are affected. You understand? Now, at that moment, you feel so bad, you feel so terrible. But the same incident after 5 years, after 10 years, how do you view it? You still view your pet fondly, but you're not crying over it anymore. You still remember the emotion, but you're not affected, you're not crying. So at that moment, when you go through sorrow, it feels the end of the world. At 16, the fellow, uh, his girlfriend leaves him. He has a heartbreak at 16. He feels he wants to end his life. It's not worth living anymore. You understand? We are all smiling at it. The poor fellow, that fellow is suffering. Huh? So at that moment, the fellow says, enough is enough. I remember in school, final year in school, all my friends came to me and said, hey, you got to stand for the election. We had the school elections to have the school pupil leader. It was called a pupil leader. It's just there's no power. It's simply there was one position, and I was fully caught up in that. And they said, "Oh, you should become the next pupil leader. We'll all back you. We'll all support you." I said, "Fantastic, fantastic." So we had proper speeches and all that. The person will speak, and there'll be one person speaking in support of you. All that, like a proper election kind of a thing. When it came to actual voting, most of my friends voted for the next candidate, not for me. So I lost the elections. My God, I remember going to my family and saying, I'm not going back to that school. I'm leaving school. I'm not going. I can't go. My friends, I felt like Caesar. Yeah, I felt like Caesar. They stabbed me in the back. I decided that's it. I'm not going. I'm leaving everything. So you understand? So at that moment, you feel that's the end of the world. Whole thing is gone. So horizontal view, just as you're looking at those events and smiling at it, laughing at it, 10 years later, you'll be looking at what you're doing today and you'll laugh at it. Oh gosh, how did I do this? So stupid of me. So silly of me. So horizontal view. Same thing, vertical view is with reference to the world. There's one incident of yours. What difference will it make to the world as such? Or we had a successful lectures. So many people attended the lectures. What difference does that make as far as the whole world is concerned? What's happening in the world today? It makes no difference. You understand? So, if you look at it in that wider perspective, immediately there's an objectivity you develop. So, like I said, success and failure. So it's not only failure, not only sorrow, but even joy. It's more difficult to be objective in joy. You get carried away by joy, you get carried away by pleasure. So to maintain that level headedness, even this shall pass away. Even the best of success can pass away. So permanent objectivity and temporary objectivity. Permanent objectivity is a long-term objectivity. Temporary, at that moment, you develop that. So how to measure objectivity? If you want to check, have I developed this objectivity? How objective am I? It's to do with your capacity to manage loss. How do you measure your objectivity? With your mental elasticity. You take a rubber band, an elastic band, and you keep on stretching it, stretching. At some point, it snaps. Similarly, each one has a mental elasticity. So when you lose things, there's up to a certain point you can manage. After that, you crumble. You can't take it. See, the classic example that Swamiji gives is the loss of a pen, the loss of a watch. What is the loss of a pen? No big loss. What is the loss of a watch? Maybe a little bit. You feel. But again, big deal. I can get another watch. What is the loss of a car? What is the loss of a house? So, see, I remember a person saying that his business was taken over by hackers. So his website, the hackers, they took control of his website completely, his company website. He said, "Hey, what do you do?" I asked him, what did he do? Then he said he had to approach other security consultants, and of course they had their ransom. They had the demands: pay us this much money, then we'll release your website. So the finally he got control. Uh, he got it back. So suppose you lose your company which you built for years and years and years, you lose all that. What happens? You will go into depression. So the loss of a company, loss of a family member. So those are only material things. But what about the loss of a family member? So at some point, your mind can't take it anymore. It crashes. So that is the point of your objectivity. So how are you able to handle loss? Loss of your reputation, loss of your honor, loss of status, loss of sight, loss of hair. Huh? In the Bhajagovindam, Shankara says, Ma kuru dhana jana yavvana garva. Dhana jana yavvana. He says three things are fleeting: money, fame, and youth. Do not be proud of wealth, following, and youth. Ma kuru. Dhana means wealth. Jana means following. Yavvana, youth. Time loots all this gradually. Time takes it all away. So some people can't take that loss. They get affected because the lack of objectivity. So stronger the intellect, greater becomes your mental elasticity. You're able to maintain that you won't buckle. It's like a F1 driver. The car goes at such a fast pace, but he maintains that control over the car. The car doesn't crash. So you maintain your character in the best and worst of circumstances. The English cricket team, it's a long time back, probably about 6, 7 years back. I think they probably won the Ashes. And the England cricket team, they got so caught up in the joy. They all drank and drank and they urinated on the pitch, the whole England team. Can you imagine? A sacred pitch, they're playing on the pitch. See, you lose your objectivity. Even sometimes when they go on the bus tour after the victory tour, so many of them get drunk. So it's much more difficult to be objective in success. Time of success, to practice it is very difficult. So first is action, second is direction, third is objectivity, fourth value is duties, not rights. Rights is selfish, duties is unselfish. What can I do for others is duties. What can I get from others is rights. So as you become more and more unselfish, your focus shifts more to duties and less on rights. A selfless person does not claim anything. So the attitude of duty, see, duties, don't view it as an action. Duty, you should view it as an attitude. So you plug this duty into all your actions. The attitude of duties. What can I do? Even if you're a receiver, you should still think in terms of what can I do? See, sometimes taking is also a form of giving. If you take gracefully, you're giving back to that person. Particularly when you visit your hometown after a year, suppose you've not been there for a year or 2 years, and you go back home, and you're visiting your family, and you tell them, "Oh, I'm here for 3 days, 4 days." What happens? Breakfast, lunch, dinner, invitations. Huh? Your family and your community, they pack you up completely. So very, very interesting. You can't refuse those invitations. All those people are very close to you. So to take is also a form of giving. It's attitude, it's not the action. How do you approach those situations? What can I give to them? How can I make them feel better? Any unit which operates on duty flourishes. Any unit operating on right perishes. It's just a matter of time. See, even in a relationship, if the husband thinks in terms of duty to his wife, that relationship will survive. Even if the wife doesn't think, if one person thinks it's fine, what can I do for the other person? Other person doesn't need to have that attitude. One person has that attitude, that relationship will survive. If both have that attitude, it's heaven on earth. You understand? Husband thinks of duties to his wife, wife thinks of duty to husband. It's heaven. Sometimes when families go out for a meal together, they fight over who has to pay the bill. You understand? Once, I remember we went to a restaurant in Pune. We took Swamiji for a meal, for a breakfast. And next table to ours, there was a much bigger family, and they had finished their meal and they were fighting. Fighting means in a good way. One fellow was saying, "No, no, I'll pay the bill." Other person saying, "No, no, 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 I'll pay the bill." Both of them, they were arguing. Who has to pay the bill? Who has to pay? So we were seated literally on the next table, so we could hear all that happening. And so Swamiji also heard that. He called them. He said, "Hey, come here, come here." They were wondering, who is this guy calling? So they came. And so Swamiji said, "What are you guys both arguing?" "No, no, no, sir, I want to pay the bill." "No, I want to pay the bill." So Swamiji said, "See, very simple, One person pays the bill on that table, other person pays bill on this table. I'll solve the problem for you guys. One fellow pays on that table, one fellow pays this table." Of course, sir, we'll do it. Of course. So what are you guys fighting? You pay bill for next table, you were fighting over it. Person pays bill. So see, both people are unselfish is a big problem. No, 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 you go first. No, 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 you go first. Hey, who's going to go, man? So unselfishness. So both are unselfish. It'll be incredible. But even if one person is unselfish, one person has an attitude of duties, it'll be fine. We'll have no problem. So relationship issues to solve, one person practice duties. What is my duty? What can I do for that? That's it. So in the third chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, he says there are three attitudes. First attitude is, he puts it in a poetic way. He says, one who eats without producing. One who eats without producing is verily a thief. See, a person who's consuming the resources of the world but doesn't want to give back anything in return. That's what he means. Eats without producing. He's ready to enjoy things from the world, but doesn't want to give, doesn't want to produce. Is a highly self-centered person. Is a thief. Is preying upon the world. So this is a tamasic attitude. The lowest attitude, tamasic attitude, is to enjoy without contributing. The higher than tamas is rajas. So the rajasic attitude is one who cooks but eats sin. As I said, it's all poetic. One who cooks but eats sin. Meaning one who works for himself or herself. So cooking means one who's acting for themselves, he eats sin. Sin means mental agitation. They don't enjoy. A selfish person works for themselves, but they don't enjoy. They eat sin. They're agitated all the time. They're disturbed all the time. The third is the sattvic attitude. So, sattvic attitude is one who sacrifices and enjoys the remnants of sacrifice. One who enjoys the remnants of sacrifice. Remnants means the like a leftover. What remains? He enjoys that. That is sattvic pleasure, sattvic happiness. In fact, you get the best. You enjoy the most. You know, the I remember my mother always used to cooks, so she'll make a dosa or a chapati or whatever it is. In all our homes, most of homes like that. So she makes. So when you make it in the beginning, the pan is not seasoned. But later, as you keep on making, the quality becomes better and better. The heat gets better, the batter settles well. So first she gives everybody. Finally, she eats at the end. She gets the best. Because by the time the pan is well seasoned, and you also learned how to do it properly. So everybody feels, oh, she's so unselfish, so sacrificial. Huh? You don't realize she's getting the best at the end. So you give to others the leftover or sacrifice, you enjoy more. Because others all come and serve for you. You understand? You serving, everybody else will serve, everybody else will give. So that is for first, lowest is tamasic, who eats without producing, is a thief. The rajasic cooks but eats sin. He doesn't enjoy. Third, who enjoys the remnants of sacrifice. So duties, it seems as if, how will I enjoy? How will I grow? But the law of life is you give, you grow. The more you give, the more you grow. It's all contradictory. There's an apparent contradiction in life. The more you give, the more you grow. So, see, we are all talking of objectivity. One of our class members is practicing objectivity. You understand? She was featured on BBC this very morning, and she's in class today, right now. So, Victoria, a class member and trustee of our institute, she was featured on BBC News this morning. She appeared on BBC and she is coming straight for class. Totally objective. Fame doesn't affect you. Success doesn't affect you. So you can all catch up on that I'm going to watch it just after class. I'll switch on the TV. It's going to come on breakfast news. Victoria Usher. She's going to usher in the morning news. You know. So we're all looking forward, Victoria. Well done. Great. Tushar bhai.
Hari Om Jesh Krishna Bhaskarji. Just a quick question, clarification, and congratulations to Victoria as well. In the context of unselfishness for governing business and relationships, I want to please understand this in relation to both A, money, and B, competition, because fundamentally, even if it's like not the individual but your team or your organization or your individual, effectively by you making money, you're taking away the opportunity for somebody else to make that money, and there is this, effectively you have to almost, by inherent the nature of the market dynamic or capitalism itself, be selfish to prosper. And even in things like cricket, like one team has to win selfishly for the other team and the other team has to lose. So then how does that interplay with having this almost sort of unselfish mindset towards all, or is it only towards your and them? Like, just some clarification practically there, Bhaskarji, please.
See, the attitude is not to destroy the opponent, not to destroy the competition. See, competition is healthy for growth. When there's competition, there's dynamism. When there's no competition, there'll be complacency. So competition is necessary for growth, for progress. You don't despise your competitor. You don't have any malice towards your competitors. You understand? That's why in tennis, you shake hands at the end of the match. Sometimes, recently I've observed few of them, they don't shake the hands. They get so bugged. They don't shake the hand. So it's like that. Okay, I won, you lost. So what? Next time you may win, I may lose. That's the nature of the game. You shake the hands, So competition, because without competition, you won't grow. Growth is only through competition. So therefore, you understand that it's a part of growth. But the attitude you have is still to give, to help, to serve.
Thank you.
Okay. Any announcement, Hansa?
Yes, I do.
Yes.
Hurry up, everyone. This year, excuse me, I'm sure you would have all seen the email and WhatsApp community message about the upcoming annual weekend retreat. As we had indicated, 20 people have already booked and spaces are filling up fast. This year, we are returning to the same venue as last year, De Vere Workville Estate in Reading, Berkshire, where historic charm blends with modern style. The bedrooms are ensuite and comfortable. All meals are provided as part of the package and they are vegan and vegetarian. The highlight of the retreat will be the inspiration lectures and Q&A sessions by Bhaskarji on this year's topic of Technique of Karma Yoga. The structured schedule also includes guided yoga sessions, morning prayer and study, group discussions, devotional singing, movie discussions, and much more. This is an ideal opportunity for class members to personally meet and interact with Bhaskarji. You will also be able to meet the team members who voluntarily give their time and initiative to organize this event. You may want to book soon to avoid disappointment, so please click on the link I've posted on chat. Hurry on, everyone. Hurry on, Bhaskarji. Thank you.
Thank you, Hansa. Thank you, everyone. Hari Om. Bye for now.
Hari Om, Bhaskarji. Thank you very
Bhaskarji.
much. Hari Om.
Thanks, Bhaskarji.
Okay.
Hari Om, Bhaskarji.
Thank you, Bhaskarji.
Pranam, Bhaskarji.
Yeah.
Jai Shri Krishna. Thank you, Bhaskarji.